Thank you for tuning into the Small Business Development Series. This webinar series is brought to you by the district in Quincy, Illinois through a grant from the Illinois Main Street Program.
Well, hello, I'm Brian Ippensen, President of First Bankers Trust Services, and glad to do this presentation, Succession Planning for Your Small Business for the District webinar series. So we'll talk a little bit about succession planning in small business. It's one of the most important things that a small business will do right after the small business was the most important thing was getting it established. So let's talk about that. So just simply, let's get down to a plan. And a plan is no more in where I am now, where do I want to be, and how do I get there. So when we start talking about estate plans and business plans, take it back to those three simple tasks. Where am I now? Where do I want to be? And how do I get there? At First Bankers, we do this quite often. We talk about an estate plan with individuals. So where am I now? We take an inventory of what we have now. What are our retirement assets? What are our savings accounts? Where our home or homes may be, or any other real estate that we may have. And then you start asking yourself, well, where do I want to be? At what age? And some of those questions might be, what age do I want to retire at? And maybe even how long will I live? And the question that comes up that seems kind of odd is, after my death, I'd like to see. Now, some people answer that with, well, I'd like to see heaven, and that's certainly a good option. But one of those things that when we talk about the assets that you have is we can't take those with you. So we've got to find what it is that we'd like to see with those assets and where we would like for them to go. And again, that's really the basis of an estate plan. You can make it complex, you can make it fairly simple, but again, that's the kind of the start of the plan. So within an estate plan, if you're a small business owner, your business is a larger part of your net worth, and certainly your business is going to be a larger part of your estate plan. Generally, we run into two types of people that have talked about their estate plan or their business succession plan. And certain people are very good at announcing what their plan is going to be. So during their lifetime, they've given their thoughts, their knowledge, their experience, and their business ability to their family, or they've written down the plan, and they've spent some time in it for themselves, and they've had some professional fees that has cost them, because again, there's a lot of legal and tax implications, just the name too, about how you do your plan. The other group of people then are those that like to withhold their plan. And usually they must have drank something from the fountain of youth, because they're going to live forever. But we all know that's not the case. We're all mortal after all. But if you withhold your plan, then after your death or after some significant event that no longer allows you to be in control of it, then somebody else is going to have to do it. And in most small businesses, that's usually somebody within the family, or certainly it would be the executor of your estate. The cost of that is going to be significantly more professional fees. Your family's going to be much more stressed, and they've got to make a decision that may or may not be what you had intended. There's a lot of family mental anguish that goes into that, because they want to do what they thought you would like, and then they second guess, well, maybe that's not quite what they would like. And also from an estate, it could delay the estate settlement for months or years until that business is wound down or whatever it happens to be. While all of that is happening, you've got a business then that suffers with vendors, suppliers, and ultimately your customers. Is the business going to be around? If I buy something today, am I going to be able to return it tomorrow? So it's those types of things that, again, having a plan simply gives it some structure. A plan's not absolute. It can change any time, but it gives us some direction. One of the things that businesses, your business succession plan is going to be driven by what kind of organization that you've selected. And I think this slide is important, and I certainly, in the time that we have, we can't go into all the issues that are involved in what organization that you've selected. But I do want to stress there are some legal issues to consider. There's tax issues to consider in each of these three types. But for business succession, let me spend just a few minutes and go through those. If you have a sole proprietorship, and I should have probably included on this slide as well, a partnership, at your death or incapacity, the business ends. That business will be included in your estate, and the executor of your estate has the ability to continue to run the business or sell the business, but that business itself is a sole proprietorship or a partnership. That business ends. I'll jump down to a corporation to juxtapose a sole proprietorship. If you are the shareholder of a business and you happen to pass away, the death of the shareholder does not affect the structure of the corporation. The corporation continues to exist. In the middle, then, is what we call an LLC or LLP. It's an acronym for limited liability company or limited liability partnership. Depending on what state you operate in and how either of those two entities are structured, the business can be dissolved at death or incapacity. It may or may not be a part of your estate. And generally, with those types of structures, it's usually distributed or the company's wound down by a operating agreement. So again, somewhere in between a sole proprietorship and a corporation, there's going to be some nuances about LLC and LLP that both have legal and tax issues. But again, as we go down this journey, depending on where you are today, may affect how we look at the plan later on. So the events of succession, what happens if? So thinking about succession, how is the succession, how's it going to come? And so we've kind of categorized it into three events: life-triggering events, events of succession for selling the business, or events of succession for keeping the business. So let's just jump into life-triggering events, and these are the ones that we all think about. Retirement is a life-triggering event. Today I'm working, tomorrow I retire, and the next day I've got nothing to do. Well, it probably doesn't work quite that way in retirement, but certainly retirement is a life-triggering event. And if you want to retire from your small business, there's some things that you have to think about, and it is truly a life-triggering event. Death is a life-triggering event, not only for you, but for everybody else. And so if you're the owner of a business, that life-triggering event most often becomes problematic for a small business when it's unexpected. If you're still running the business and you die unexpectedly, now what happens? And the same happens if you become disabled or incapacitated. And certainly, we all know someone that has become incapacitated at some point in time in their life, and generally tragically at that. Again, having the ability to continue to operate that business and how it'll operate are life-triggering events. So a couple little planning tips, things to think about. If you have a business partner or as part of a sole proprietorship, you're on your own. You may want to think about insurance, life insurance, obviously covering for a death, disability insurance for covering incapacitation, saving for retirement outside of the business. So what assets have you accumulated that would get you through beyond retirement, separate and apart from the value, if you will, of the business? If you have business partners, there's generally something you'll hear about called buy-sell agreements. Written between the two is how we're going to separate the business if we decide to part company with one another, or in this case, die unexpectedly or decide to retire or become disabled. If you have a business buy-sell agreement for your business, I would also encourage you to, every couple of years, make sure you update that buy-sell agreement. Look at it and make sure that, hey, these are still the same terms that we all want to work on, whoever's a party to that buy-sell agreement. The next event of succession is just selling the business. And so if you think about selling the business, you have to think about, well, who are some of my potential buyers? Certainly a competitor would be a potential buyer. but it could be family, there could be friends, could be the management of the staff of the people that are working for you in your business as potential buyers and want to carry on the traditions of that business. Next, you have to think about what are the characteristics of your business that are unique and interesting. I think every business has a story to tell. There is something unique about every business. They may sell the same product as somebody else across town, but there's something unique about what they do. And that uniqueness for that business adds value to a potential buyer or to whoever it is going to be. So understanding that and putting that into your model, into your plan about what you're, if you were to decide to sell the business, I think it's a very important part for you to sit down. Could be one item, could be several items, but again, those unique characteristics about your business are things that you as a business owner, you've started the business, you know what those are, and now today you need to really kind of express what those interesting facts are. So when you also need to think about when you sell the businesses, well, what's going to happen to the business itself? What happens to key employees? What happens to customers? So let's take a competitor. A competitor may say, "Hey, I'm very interested in your business. You sell to clients that I don't. I would definitely like your customer list." So now your customers are going to be served by somebody else. Your key employees may or may not be working for the new competitor. So again, those are things that are business beyond value that you have to think about, but they are definitely considerations when you come to sell the business. Last bullet that I put down there is, if you sell the business, how are you going to get paid? Are you going to get paid cash? Is somebody going to pay you out over a period of time in a note? Or is there going to be some combination thereof? And those are things that you have to consider of, well, what is important to me, and timing of how you want to see things after you sell your business. Last item about on the events of succession is, maybe one of the things that you'd like to do is really keep the business, but beyond your working at the business. So what I mean by keeping in the business is keeping it within the family. You have a daughter or you have a son that's working for you or that has an interest in the business. How do I transfer that ownership to them? You have a business partner. Maybe it's your spouse. Maybe it's your best friend that you guys have worked on this business together. How do I transfer my ownership in the business to them? Often thought of as an exchange to others. And what I mean by the exchange is you could think of it as the terms of a sell, but maybe a little bit differently than that. Some people are, I want fair market value, or an acronym FMV. And that means, hey, that's what the current price is. That's the price that I really think I want to sell that business to my son, sell that business to my daughter, sell it to my business partner at fair market value. Certainly, you could do it at a deeper discount, so something less than fair market value, because you want them to carry on the business. The business has been good to you, and you're ready to move on. And last but not least is certainly gift the business outright. And I'm sure whoever the beneficiary of that gift would love to have your business and run it as successful as you have. So again, keeping the business within the family or with a business partner, and what that price is. And we've tried to talk not too much about business succession with price, but again, it's one of the considerations that you should think about when you put your plan together. Planning is, again, keep it simple. Where am I now? Where do I want to be, and what do I want it to look like? How do we get there? Very often, what we often see with many small business owners is, why don't they plan? Well, it'll never happen to me. Retirement is 10 years away, 15 years away. I don't need to worry about that today. I'm going to die when I'm 85, which I'm going to keep running this business till I'm 84. Very well could be true. But certainly the event of death could happen much before that when you plan it to be. None of us know our time of departure from the earth, correct? So again, knowing, putting a plan together certainly helps that transition. And that's really what we're talking about, is transitioning the business. We often hear, I'm too busy running the business to not worry about that. It's really a non-event. You've worked so hard to start the business, or maybe you bought the business and you've taken it to the next level. Well, then certainly with that as much certainty, then we need to think about how we do the business succession. Is it difficult? It certainly doesn't need to be difficult. It won't be painful. It will be thought-provoking because, again, as we've mentioned just in the last 9 slides, there's a lot of different options, and there's no one that's more right or wrong than what you have presently. But certainly, it will be thought-provoking. It could be complex, depending on what your plan is and where do you want it to go. First Bankers would like to thank the district for the opportunity to talk about business succession. My contact information is listed below. If you have any questions, you've got my email address. Call me direct or drop me a letter at the address provided. So thank you to the district, and we appreciate it.
I want to remind you that the webinar series is brought to you by the district through a grant from the Illinois Main Street program.